Hey guys, this is Kevin Epps, creator and facilitator of Digital Brilliance Hour. This is a training series for understanding OpenBOR, a fighting beat-em-up game engine. In the last tutorial, we talked about extracting all the frames for animation while structuring and renaming them to be identifiable for creating the character object. Also, remember that you have to save everything inside of the game assets folder in your main OpenBOR project. Now we'll create a character object from those frames. We'll be using a tool called OpenBOR Stats, which is basically an editor tool for OpenBOR. So let's get started. Alright, so let's go to our OpenBOR Tools folder, then OpenBOR Stats folder, and open up the OpenBOR Stats.exe application. So first, in order to use the tool, we need to load in data from the project you're working on. Click on that blue folder icon to locate where your main OpenBOR build/data folder is. You will select that data folder to load that project. But before we do that, let's make sure we have created our own branch to work in. So by this time, we should already have the Git bash open. At this point, you should have your command and Git command cheat sheet open, and I will assume you have it with you or memorized. First, go to your main OpenBOR folder using the cd command. Once there, either create or move to your branch using the steps in the Git command cheat sheet. I've already created my branch, so I'm changing to it. And as you can see, the branch name within the parenthesis is KEPS branch, which is the name of the branch. Back to the tool, it should show a list of objects now, and models is where all your entity objects are located. So hit the plus sign on the left to see its children and do the same for player. Now you'll see a list of playable characters, and from here you want to right click on the word player, then add character entity. In this screen there are a few fields to pay attention to: the template and load method. You want to select the player template for playable characters, enemies for enemies, etc. Load method determines how an object is loaded into the game. All playable characters should be loaded by the load method. The name field is just the name of the character. No spaces, please. I used the name Hagar for purposes of this tutorial. Then you just click add. You'll then see a message that tells you to reload the project. And to do that, all you have to do is click this green circle icon to refresh the data. Then just drill down to the player list and you'll see the new character listed. From here, just go ahead and just double click on the new character to start editing it. You'll now see a new window with a configuration editor, frame editor, and animation list. You'll be able to edit each animation here as well, which we'll do. Although these aren't the only available animations, these base 6 animations are all that's needed for the character to show up in the game at least. But you'll definitely be adding more animations in the future. So right now you have the following: Attack 1, Fall, Idle, Pain, Rise, and Walk. Now we want to assign the exported sprites to the appropriate animations. To do this, just right click on the animation title and choose Import and Copy Files. In the case of Attack 1, you would just find the folder that has your Attack 1 frames. At this area here, select that you are looking for .png files, and then select them by holding Control and hitting A. Then click OK. They will then copy over to your character. In order to see the frames, you need to click the save icon here. Then they'll show up. When you're in the editor tab, you also need to delete the initial frame that comes with every animation. Just highlight and delete the text for that frame. Now we're going to do the same thing for the rest of the animations. Now that we've finished, let's work on the walk animation. And make sure you're in the frame tab. So you should notice a few things. The frame itself on the left with the crosshair and a blue box. The crosshair is the offset, which is responsible for aligning the frame so that when it runs in the game, the frames don't appear off balance. The blue box is the bounding box for collision detection. On the right hand side, you see the fields that control what's on the left. Offset to the top using the X and Y coordinate system. Below that is the move axis. This moves the object left to right based on an animation frame. This is independent of how you would typically move your character. The last one to pay attention to for now is the attack box. This is the collision box for making a hit with another object's bounding box, where you can assign a damage value. First thing we want to do is start with assigning offset values to the frames. The typical process is to find and pivot the limb and other characteristics to line up with your first frame of animation. The best situation is that each frame width have the same exact size. In those situations, you can just put the X offset value in the center. For this animation though, this isn't the case, so I'll just show you what to do in these cases. So what we want to do is use the pivot leg, which is the left leg in this case. Also use his suspender to center all the frames. The white center line in this Y-axis represents the floor. So you want to make sure the white line is right underneath the foot so it doesn't look like it's floating. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm now looking for all frames to see if the width of the frame is different, as I'll need to change the offset for that particular frame. I found a few frames here that have a different width. So in order to add a new offset, I click the drop down beside the offset fields and click set from previous, which takes the values from the previous frame's offset and assigns it to the current. Then you can take that value and update it for that frame. This is what I'm doing for each frame. Then I start to give a fine line with keeping it towards the center, the pivot leg, and the suspender. Now I've saved the character and opened up OpenBOR to see how it looks. Notice how you're able to choose the new character now, and it's loaded in the game. Uh-oh, you can see a slight skip in the animation when you see it in the game. Alright, so now I'm back in the tool. One more thing I meant to say, you can also play the animation in the tool by clicking animate on the top right button and again to stop it. So now I realize that I need to focus on a particular point in the suspender across all frames to keep the animation fluid. Now I'm running it again. See how fluid the walk animation is? So one thing you should have noticed is how the frame jumped from idle to walk. So I'm moving the offset to the same spot on the idle frame using that same suspender. Loading it up, the jumpy move is removed. Now I'm just doing the same thing for other animations. In the fall animation, just make sure that when you're on the ground that the floor is right underneath their back. And remember, the floor is that white line in the y-axis. Now with the Attack 1 animation, I used the pivot leg for the offset and changed the bounding box. You can also choose Set via Mouse to click and drag to create boxes as well. I also removed the bounding box for certain frames to ensure that it doesn't get hit in specific frames. Now we are updating the attack box, which is set using Set via Mouse, click and drag over the area to ensure it connects. Once you make all the changes, click Save. Now open up the game and try punching the other enemies. And as you can see, now it works. This wraps up this portion with initial character setup. See you soon.